let's talk about the Louis Vuitton Fall Winter 24 collection. Of course, as you guys know, this is Pharrell Williams' third collection with Louis Vuitton. Louis Vuitton is a massive brand at this point. Last year, they became the first 20 billion euro brand in the world, which is insane. And that 20 billion euros just means that they made 20 billion euros in revenue in 1 year. So they became the first luxury brand to do that. So LV, the biggest brand in fashion, the most relevant brand in fashion, the brand that makes the most money. And clearly, from a financial standpoint, they know what they're doing. It's the reason why they hired Pharrell, because if we're being very honest, when you're a 20 billion euro brand, how do you top that? You have shareholders and people that still want the brand to grow, even though you make like sickening amounts of money. And the only way to do that really is just more fame, you know, more interesting people, more numbers, more eyeballs. And I think with Pharrell, that is what you get at Louis Vuitton, because sometimes I know fashion is an art and I appreciate fashion as an art, but sometimes we can't forget that these things don't exist separate from billion-dollar businesses. Sometimes we like to pretend or behave like, you know, the art of fashion and the artfulness of the things that designers design is separate to the major capitalism within the system of fashion that they exist in. So it's always something, you know, that should be pointed out. And of course, for this collection, this Louis Vuitton Fall Winter 24 collection, a lot of it was about the root of an American Western wardrobe. And it also explored ideas of workwear. Of course, there are many collaborations that happen in this collection. There are collaborations with, you know, Dakota and Lakota artists, Native American communities, and they made pieces across the collection, whether they were, you know, sewing on flowers on pieces, or they were, you know, collaborating on parts of the soundtrack. And they even made some of the bags. Some of the bags were painted, and then some of them had this embroidery that they did. So what we're going to do is we're going to put the runway show on the screen, and then we're going to just run through it. Someone said, thank you for saying the business take. Yeah, because it's so true. I don't know if it's we like to pretend, or maybe sometimes we forget that these designers are designing for companies that make tens of billions a year. So it's very relevant to not separate the two things. I think you're doing the whole thing a disservice if you do that. But yeah, let's talk about this Western aesthetic, because some of the criticism I saw online was, you know, Pharrell Williams is trying to do Western cosplay and blah, 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 blah. I don't necessarily agree with that take. I think that Western fashion is nothing new in the realm of fashion. So many designers in fashion have, you know, been inspired by this. We've seen D Squared do this. We've seen Virgil Abloh tackle this. We've seen, you know, Pia Moss, who's also had a collection that was talking about the fact that some of the most original cowboys were actually Black people. That is kind of the understanding that Pharrell Williams is coming from in this collection, talking about how, you know, a lot of the cowboys were Native Americans and they were Blacks, especially in the 18th century. I think there was a stat I read that in the 19th century, that in the 1800s, the Black cowboys actually accounted for 25% of all cowboys, which is insane if you think of the percentage of Black people as a population of, you know, America at the time. That is actually a very, very insane stat. So yeah, it's all very interesting. Even people that aren't coming from the perspective of, okay, there was a time when Black and Native Americans were most of the cowboys, not the cowboys we associate with now. There's more of a, like, let's say, European perspective to what cowboys are. We've seen Raf Simons do that. We've seen people like Bodie have their takes on the Western aesthetic. Even Ralph Lauren, damn near, kind of created his own caricature of a whole sort of Western / British, American meets old British tailoring sort of aesthetic. So it's just been done, is my point. So many people have done it. But I do find it weird that people say Pharrell doing it is cliche when we don't think of what Ralph Lauren does as cliche, which I think in many ways is actually very cliche, just taking like a very caricature understanding of what old English heritage and culture is and just slapping that into a brand. That is very cliche. But Ralph Lauren doesn't get the same criticism that I would say Pharrell is getting for the same things. But anyway, Dami, how are you and what do you think of the collection?
Yo, what is good? What is good? I was excited and I was low key rushing, but I couldn't rush. But yeah, what I thought about the collection. The collection's all right, to be honest. I like. People are saying that it's better than Virgil's second collection also. So that's what I saw. As well as
Right.
like, I've seen a myriad of things, right? But we're talking about the collection in and of itself, right?
Yeah.
And just to like echo your sentiments, what I've seen from Pharrell, or at least like in this specific genre of it, like because we also have Visvim, we have like a myriad of Japanese brands also that do the Americana aesthetic, as well as like you said, Ralph Lauren and the kind. So to point at Pharrell and like nitpick on his referencing, especially when there is this new train of thought that Black Americans are Native Americans in quotes, is the term, and Black Americans being cowboys, etc., right? So being the foundation and fundamental Black people or people of America is like kind of like the quote. So it's par for the course of a Black American to do this, especially when there is a new philosophy that is surrounding this and is derived from this. So I'm one for the reference. So just to say, the reference in and of itself, it makes sense to me as like a philosophical empowerment type of thing, but also the idea that like I understand, but also the idea that Pharrell is being a caricature is also a bit silly to me. But just to speak about on the clothes, I enjoy the color palette, I enjoy the accessories, and I'm more understanding more the way that Pharrell is trying to go and the direction that he's actually taking in this type of stay that he has at Louis Vuitton. So it's quite interesting to me, fairly.
Yeah, I think that, like I said earlier, like the critique of, it being cliche, I just find it a bit weird considering other people that I would say there's a lot of stuff that you could say is cliche, like Ralph Lauren is like my biggest culprit. He isn't given the same critiques, which I just find strange. And I think when it comes to this Western aesthetic, because it's so overplayed and because so many designers have done it, my first thought is, okay, what's different about this? How are you, making it different? What is the point of reference that's a bit different to what we usually see, that would differentiate this from all the other Western inspired collections I've seen? And I think what actually is slightly different is the Native American perspective on it, because I've definitely seen a solely Black perspective on those being a big majority of like cowboys at a point and a high percentage of cowboys being Black. But I haven't really seen a Native American perspective. Which there are obviously deep and dark reasons why a lot of these people are cowboys. If we're going back to like slavery and like those times, because the jobs that the cowboys were doing, like rearing cattle and taking care of the horses and stuff, a lot of it wasn't by choice. They had like masters who made them do these things, and so you're almost commenting on stuff that's actually quite deep. And that's why I think also Pharrell managed to weave in ideas of workwear. There's that jacket that we just saw that people are saying it looks like a Carhartt jacket. There's also so many references to just workwear in general. If you think of even the Timberland boots, the fact that they collaborated with Timberland in this collection makes a lot of sense in the context of everything being about workwear. And if you think of hip hop really is like, they've adopted Timberland boots as almost like workwear, but within the realm of hip hop. So it's quite interesting. You're talking about workwear, you're also talking about an American aesthetic, and then you have a collaboration with Timberland. And it's also a collection that's going to be boots heavy because it's Western inspired. You're going to have a lot of cowboy boots, so why not add some Timberland boots in there? I thought that was a really good touch. I think something that I thought was missing in this collection actually was a collaboration with Wrangler, because I was thinking the whole time, like, Wrangler is the quintessential, like, workwear, Americana aesthetic kind of brand. And you could have woven that into this collection. I feel like that was a very, very, very huge missed opportunity in this collection. And it's funny because, like, even if you think of what is a wrangler? Like, what does that mean? Those are people that also take care of livestock and animals and tend to horses and often work for cowboys. And obviously the brand itself, I think in the 1940s, I think they hired a Polish tailor who worked closely with cowboys, and they actually got this person to design jeans that were suitable for use on a rodeo. So if we're going to talk about Western aesthetic and Americana, we need that Wrangler collaboration with Louis Vuitton. I think that would have been the most, I don't know, like just the best thing to do, the thing that would make the most sense. But hey, we missed on that one and we moved forward with that. But anyway, any more thoughts before I ramble on?
Yes. Yeah, no. So in terms of I hope you can hear me. My internet just keeps being spotty for some
Oh
reason.
no, I can hear you fine.
But
Perfectly.
the like in terms of the aesthetic, and not just aesthetic, but the philosophy around it. So I think you dipped out for a bit, but another point to make was not just the philosophy of being foundationally Black American, but also the other jobs that cowboys were doing back in the day, which was scalping, right? So it was actually hunting other slaves and people that are trying to be free and people that are draft dodging, so on and so forth, right? And there were Native Americans and Black people who actually had these jobs, and they did these jobs to get their papers and to free their families and all of these other things, right? What was happening in the show, like just a little note. So there are people in the show that are walking the show that are Black and American of the kind that are either not just celebrities, but there are families in there. So do you know who Deion Sanders is?
Mm-hmm.
So Shador Sanders and his brother were walking the show also, and they have been like one of these big American families, Black American families that are major celebrities right now. Or should I say like influencers or like, but Deion Sanders is like the figure, right? He's like the matriarch, also, or should I say patriarchal almost. So he's like one of those Black dads that is doing something major in America. I also wanted to say are we going to move on from Louis Vuitton after this? Because I actually wanted to say something directly about how Pharrell is conducting himself at Louis Vuitton.
No. Say it.
All right then. So I've been thinking about this millionaire stuff, right? And the made to order stuff. And part of me believes that this is some sort of marketing ploy because these bags are made to order
Mm-hmm.
and they aren't necessarily made for anything. But I've seen it in news that isn't necessarily news. Like I've seen it in places um where people who I know don't even follow fashion will look at it. And then that made me understand, or should I say, think about the fact that Pharrell's from the art and watch world. And what the watch world does and what the art world does is make these limited pieces that are super complicated to make, but also are statements. So
Mm-hmm.
Pharrell also wears Richard Mile's or Richard Milles, depending on how you want to say it, and these are $1 million watches. These are like
Mm-hmm.
millionaire watches. So he like rubs shoulders with these people that buy Basquiat's and RMs and watch Formula One. So he understands the mindset of them. So, but
Mm-hmm.
also he's talking to the people who are find this Louis Vuitton aesthetic aspirational. So I understand not just people wanting the Black American aesthetic or Pharrell's aesthetic, but these are people that grew up on Pharrell and inherited their wealth and so on and so forth. So there's this like in terms of an intersection, there are people that listen to his music and just want to have things from Pharrell, as well as see Pharrell as some sort of PR almost because of his affiliations with RM and the watches that he had. So that's just like kind of my thoughts on that. But yeah, there's so many things to say in terms of the merchandise of Louis Vuitton, but I'll leave that for another time.
What do you
I want to
think
know what
about
your thoughts are.
what do you think? Yeah, I have so much to say, but I don't want to ramble on. But what do you
Yeah,
think about him bringing the camouflage back? Now he's calling it camouflage, which is very interesting because it's in a different tone. This pixelated print thing going on. He's kind of turning it into the Pharrell Williams Louis Vuitton signifier. What do you think
yeah,
about him really pushing that
yeah.
till now?
Oh, thank you for bringing that up because that was part of my notes also. So based on this, what I know with my ear to the streets is that you know that Louis Vuitton have a store in New York, right?
Hmm.
And in that store, you can't keep the black people away. Like there's people that are literally at the store just to be at the store. It's almost like a supreme-esque thing, right? But also there's these nouveau riche or people with money, black Americans that, and maybe not just black Americans, right? But it's New York, isn't it? So it's whatever the mix of New Yorkers are that enjoy this, and they see it as Pharrell's thing in and of itself, anyways.
Hmm.
So there are people who are buying into this via the pixelated Louis Vuitton look, anyways. And that is, and China's also optimistic about their installation with Pharrell. And then Selfridges London, which also has a Louis Vuitton installation. I'm going there soon. I don't know if you want to go, but just to say that these rich people, they love it. And
Yeah.
if we know anything about merchandise, as we both do, if they're loving it, why are you gonna stop?
Right.
But I know, namely, right, people that enjoy it, see it as Pharrell's thing, and they believe that, like I said earlier, um, his second collection is better than Virgil's second collection, and they think he's gonna do way better than Virgil, so they're buying into it right now.
Interesting. I mean, I definitely don't think that his collection was better than Virgil's. I don't believe that. But from a perspective of, like what sells and their bottom line, that's what they need. Because I do think because Pharrell is so famous and because Louis Vuitton is such a big brand, the kind of conversations that we're having is really for like a fashion forward audience. Majority of people won't even have this kind of conversation. They won't ever hear about these kind of thoughts. So really, they're fans of Pharrell, and whatever Pharrell does, they're like, just the fact that Pharrell, who they've grown up on, is now creative director or head of menswear, let's say, artistic director of menswear at Louis Vuitton. To them, it's always going to be amazing. It doesn't matter. And anything before, which they might not have too good of a reference to, is not as good as what Pharrell is doing now. That's just what they're going to think, which is fair enough. Like, fair enough. You can't control that. That is what it is. My thing that I wanted to ask you actually is, what do you think about the context of using Native American motifs in the context of selling it under a multi-billion-dollar brand that's owned by an even bigger multi-billion-dollar conglomerate? What do you think about that? Even though I know they collaborated with Native Americans, I know that they had models that were Native Americans and all that stuff to try and be authentic. But what do you think of the fact that regardless, it's still in the context of it being sold by a
What do
French
I actually
European
feel about it?
house?
What do I actually feel about it? Um,
Yep.
what do we feel about Dior using the Ukrainian women and widows to sew garments?
Mm.
I'll wait for the chat to, you know what I'm saying, do that thing.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I don't know how I feel about that. It just makes me a bit.
Because
Do you know
no,
why it makes
okay,
me a
this
bit?
is okay. All right,
Do you
you
know
go
why?
ahead and I'll go. Yeah,
Do you
go.
know why? It's because right now, obviously, what everyone is talking about in politics is, um, Palestine and like the Jewish and Palestinian conflict, right? But one conversation that is not, because the conversation that people are having is about, okay, who has a right to the land? And something I've always thought about when I watch CNN and I watch all these things is like, okay, but all of you are inhabiting a land that none of you own either. You like the Native Americans, that's their land. And all of you are like, oh my God, I can't believe this, that, this. And you're all literally sitting on people's land that you don't own and that has been taken away from them. So like as just like a frame, it's always weird looking at it from that perspective. So in when you think of that context in what's going on in the world, then to have Native American ideas kind of packaged and sold by $1 billion brand, I don't know. I just feel a bit weird about it. But anyway, what do you think?
All right, I was just making sure that because I've got the live over here. But here's my thing, right? So, and this goes into new wave American philosophy, right? So there are Black Americans, and then there's a sector of Black Americans, and then there's also the East Coast of Black Americans, right? And then in that sphere, there are people who believe that they're Native Americans and say they have Native American blood. And Virginia is right there. Pharrell also done a Timberland collaboration. The flagship and the people that actually like what Pharrell's doing are also in New York, so on and so forth. It's not by happenstance or mistake. So there isn't a part of me that would believe that Pharrell doesn't think, or there is a universe where Pharrell doesn't think that he's probably Native American as well. Or he would have Native American blood, heritage, anything of this kind, right? So what I think is irrelevant in this particular instance. But in terms of when you put the European lens on it, you do enter me into the conversation, right? So, because I cover Louis Vuitton like extensively. So what I feel about Louis Vuitton doing it is the same way that Virgil brought literally like the essence of blackness in America, right? Through the Ghanaian American lens, and pretty much handed it over to Louis Vuitton, and then minimized whatever action that his Off-White was doing, so that Louis Vuitton can be propped up to the $20 billion corporation that it is today. And that is kind of my thing. So it's like, obviously this is that one show. I don't know how much is going to permeate through the shows thereafter. But when it comes to blackness and people wanting to feel Black American, Pharrell gives that to people. Pharrell gives people the clips. He gives people Jay-Z. He gives people all of these things that like have this hood street drug dealer. Like he says it himself, right? He loves when like Nori talks about drug dealer stuff, and like he was apart from that, but he's also like, you know, he really loves that. So he's a voyeur just as some of these other people are. So in that sense, he kind of relates to what these white people feel in a sense, right? Not to say that that is his total character, but there is a sentiment there, right? And within all of that, there is this show, right? Within that context, there is a show, and there's a show of being American, wanting to feel foundationally American, wanting to have claim to the land, and all of these other things, right? Because, you know, Black Americans did build literally pretty much everything in America, right?
100.
So that is kind of one of those things. Whether, you know, he's Native American or not, he comes from that heritage. So in that sense, he's allowed to do it. But
so I think
Vuitton exploiting it is part of the course.
That's what I was gonna say. I was gonna say it's not really more of a Pharrell thing. It's more of the fact that LVMH is a European conglomerate and LV is a French house, and it's in from that lens, not necessarily from for Pharrell, but it's more like Pharrell, and also that being on top is where it's a bit. I don't know how I feel about this. Doesn't mean Pharrell can honestly do what he wants. That's up to him. I just thought it just made me made me feel a bit weird, especially in the context of it being a European brand. It being through the lens of a European brand was just a bit, I don't know how I feel about that. But it is important to obviously reference that Pharrell is from Virginia. And if you think of Virginia in terms of cowboys, Virginia played like a massive role in the development of cowboy culture in the US, like a huge role. And to quote something that he said in an interview with Vogue, he said, when you see cowboys portrayed, you only see a few versions. You never really get to see what some of the original cowboys looked like. They looked like us. They looked like me. They looked Black. They looked Native American. So that's what he said to Vogue. But yeah, I don't know, just the context of packaging this up for selling it to the 1% through the lens of a French brand is where I thought, okay, this is a bit dicey. But yes, it's interesting. It's interesting.
Yeah, like this is the thing. Like he enters Louis Vuitton in the conversation to be able to reference this outside of him now because it's part of their lexicon. And that is the same way with Virgil. Because remember those iridescent bags that Virgil made? Like I think that was his second collection fairly. So I don't know how this is gonna be better than that. But anyways. But like, and how those were like just jumping off the shelves. And then there was the summer fashion week, I believe. um that was the either the one before or the one after Pop Smoke came there, right? Or should I say the one before
Mm-hmm.
or the one that Pop Smoke came to, and that like famous photo came out. So it's like he's following in that trend of like involving Louis Vuitton and involving the European eye and the European gaze, and not just them, right? The Chinese, the Middle Eastern, and so on and so forth. So it's a world stage. When you're working for Louis Vuitton, you're working on the world stage. And as
Mm-hmm.
much as we're thinking about merchandise, we also have to think about, you know, what are we delivering and what are we actually giving away, right? That's the other thing. What are we, as people, as Black people, like we can say as Nigerians or as Ghanaians, as Black Americans, what are we giving away to these European houses that we will never get back in terms of value, right? And
Right.
then that's when you have to think about how much are you benefiting and how much are they profiteering off you, right? Because at the
Mm.
end of the day, they're going to profit off this for another 100 years. So when we're
Yeah.
all gone,
Also,
the
Derek
people are
is
going to
laughing
benefit.
about cowboys in Virginia. If you look into it historically, yes, there were cowboys in Virginia. And the cowboys in Virginia are actually very influential to spreading the culture across the USA. Like, literally do research into it. Micah, what do you have to
Hello,
say,
lads.
sir?
Just a quick point. I was just expanding on some stuff we were discussing in the chat. From what I can see, I'm very pretty certain that Pharrell's approach to LV at the moment is crafting a sellable collection around his own personal style. I think that a lot of these narratives and themes come into the conversation once he's picked which aspect of his style that he plans to expand upon in that collection. And I feel like whatever's shown next, so spring summer 25, I'm I'm pretty sure that that collection will kind of solidify this theory I have. Because when you look at anything in the collection, it looks like um something straight out Pharrell's wardrobe. And you can say that for his
Mm-hmm.
debut. You can say that for this collection. I want you to pull up that picture of, if you just type into Google like Pharrell Chanel Met Gala. If you look at the
Oh, yeah, yeah, I
wardrobe,
know the look you're talking about. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
but pull it up for the chat. I mean, so it's on the screen. It literally, I'm telling you, if we could
Let me
swap
pull it
those
up.
any logos for
Yeah,
LV logo,
continuing.
and you, everyone would be like, oh yeah, this is part of his LV collection. So I think because he's so loved, um, on a global scale, and he has a very, very, very deep understanding of personal style and taste. His taste level is insane. So because he has that level of understanding um, of like personal style and taste and everything, it means that um, he's now exporting his personal style to us as consumers. That's his goal,
Right.
especially as they're trying to tackle the Asian market, China, Korea, Japan, where in recent years, you know, there's been an abundance of wealth there that is spending on luxury. And that happens to be a demographic that loves Pharrell because of Nigo and because of the effect that his hip hop culture had on Japan in the early 2000s. That's their target audience. So they're just selling Pharrell to us as consumers. So I
Mm-hmm.
think next collection we'll see there'll be another pocket of his style, his personal style, that they're gonna manage to build an entire collection around and sell to us. I think that's what it's gonna be. And that differs from Virgil's approach, which was more around, you know, specific dialogues and conversations regarding like race,
Yeah,
stereotypes.
Virgil was exploring hella like
So
what does it
it's
mean to
just
be
a
an
different
African
approach.
immigrant growing up in the US, tourist versus purist? What does ownership mean in the
Yeah,
digital
exactly.
age?
Yeah.
He was
So it's just
asking
a
some
very
like
different
serious
approach.
questions.
Yeah, for sure. But that's what I think anyway. I'll let you
Yeah.
guys say what you think.
Caleb, what did you have to say?
I still think Pharrell's superior with accessories. The bags were amazing. The Courier Lozine, like I love that he kind of flipped like the classic trunk that was like iconic way back in like 1854 when the Maison started.
Yep.
The bag is mad, man.
Micah, stop
It's
flexing.
mad. Yeah, no, I love the bags. Like I think like even when he was at Chanel, like that was kind of like his bread and butter, just doing like accessories and bags and whatnot. But I feel like as far as like the ready to wear goes, I'm curious to see like how well that translates like in sales, like and who's actually gonna be like purchasing that and wearing that.
Yeah, even to talk about the bag, something I will say, this is back to Micah. Micah, you can speak about this after, but I will say that the bags definitely are amazing, and especially when you see them in person, like the detail that goes into them. Like, I've seen like Micah's bags because he was filming at my house. So I've seen like both of his Speedy bags, and like the details are insane. So Micah, talk about kind of how he's pushing Speedies as like more menswear bags, making the sizes bigger and all that sort of stuff, making them more colorful and stuff like that.
I think it just ties into the general theme I was talking about of like Pharrell wanting to sell luxury, because that is, if you're like a big fan of him, which is what I imagine why LV hired him in the first place. If you're a big fan of him at this point, you're now suddenly a big fan of like uber luxury and that thing of like taste making and taste level, like we were talking about earlier. So for all his collection, the goal has been to raise that level of luxury at LV. That means, you know, finding new ways to add even more details to the ready to wear, to the accessories. It's stuff like, I mean, in the first collection, we saw the pearls on absolutely everything. In terms of like, there was all kinds of embroidery that they don't normally do. And with that, they've increased the prices as well. But that's kind of
prices are insane. Oof.
The prices are unreal, absolutely unreal, absolutely unreal. But that's what they're going for now. So that extends to the accessories. The reason I think part of why the accessories have been so nice thus far is because they're just putting like an unprecedented amount of like detail and luxury into them, as they should be as a luxury house. But that's, you know, that's what they're going for now, I think.
I mean, at that price point, there's no excuse not to be honest.
Yeah. Well, yeah, for sure. But I mean, even when you look at like the close-ups of even this collection, the devil's in the details for sure with Pharrell's collections, I'd say. That's definitely one of the main things they're pushing.
So do you necessarily think it's a good or a bad thing that like Pharrell, like you said, with the ready to wear is literally presenting the kind of stuff that he would wear? So it's almost like relaying his personal wardrobe into a collection for Louis Vuitton. Is that necessarily a positive thing or a negative thing in your eyes? Not that it has to be, just what do you think?
I think it's just a thing. I don't think it's inherently positive or negative, because we see designers do this all the time. I mean, that's one of the foundations of creativity, in the sense of like wanting to, within the fashion space, wanting to move the needle by, you know, creating something that interests you. And who's not more interested in something outside of their personal style? You know what I mean? But I know which approach I prefer. So far, anyway, I was more interested in some of the conversations Virgil was having towards the end of his time at LV. But I just think they're both.
Michael's he's jumping in and out, mate.
They're both valid approaches to design. So.
Okay, that's fair enough. What I do want to do is actually look at some of the details, especially on Vogue Runway, because you get to see close up like some of the looks. But yeah, it's an interesting conversation. I mean, at the end of the day, every luxury brand now, this is not a Louis Vuitton thing, and this is something we talk about all the time, is kind of going for a richer clientele. Everyone has pushed their prices up, like everyone. It's almost weird that a Birkin bag used to be the height of luxury, and in some ways it still is, but some of these bags are so expensive, they're almost competing with Birkins these days, and it's actually insane.
No, a lot of brands are moving their pricing to compete with Hermes. That's like the new. I think that's the new strategy a lot of brands have. I hope, well, hopefully one day I'll release a video on this. But but yeah, I think they're just trying to introduce a new class of luxury, like super luxury. I feel like Gavin knows a lot about this.
Yeah.
Actually, you know.
Well, this
Yeah, go on, Dami.
in this particular instance, like what I see for in this luxury sector, like at least the way that it's being spoken about, or should I say the way that's being delivered to the public, right, is that people want separation, right? So when the first instance, or should I say the first luxury price point was introduced, it was so that other people couldn't reach it, like regular people couldn't reach it, and there was this almost, it was a separation of class, wasn't it? Like when we start talking about merchandise and all of these other things. But now today, it's like, okay, what is the luxury lifestyle, right? Because if you save up enough, everybody can go to Loom, everybody can go Indonesia, everybody can do, like, you know, the jet set lifestyle is not for rich people alone anymore. So now there is other sentiments, right? So when we look at it, there's like parts of our lives, at least the way that we live our lives is you pick which part of your lifestyle you want to be luxurious. So like for some people maybe perfume, some people maybe the interior design of furniture that they have, some people maybe the bags that they have, or even the trainers, the amount of trainers someone has, right? Someone can have £1,000, or should I say £10,000 worth of trainers in their house and nobody would blink an eye, right? And that is the way that this thing is grown, right? But in terms of actually living that way, there are the rich people that want to live as hobos, and then there are the rich people that want to have the full depth of the separation between what you can do and what they can do, right? And when it comes to Birkins were quite hyped in, like, that was 2022, 2023, right? And in that time, it was almost a case study of, oh, so we're allowed to put our bags this high, and it's not just for the rich mums and all of these other things. So the age range of Birkins dropped drastically. But then obviously Birkins isn't as accessible as some other things. So then Chanel started doing it, and I believe they're like the general Chanel was more expensive than the general Birkin, right? And then obviously Vuitton, because Pharrell's doing men's and women's bags, or it can be unisex, or it can be, no, bags are genderless anyways. But in terms of the ideas of it, people see the bags as a luxury statement. Like the way that Michael was even flexing earlier, it was one of these things that if that was his idea or identity of luxury, that's what you can do. However, there is the level of separation someone has, right, in terms of the art they own and the pieces that they own, right? So it's not just in watches, it's not just in, oh, you can go to a Beyonce concert and not blink an eye, or you can fly out to this one time only thing, and you know, people save up for many, many years to go to a Super Bowl. But then in terms of who's going to be in the box seats, that's a totally different conversation. So in terms of luxury lifestyle and the people that are able to live it, the bags being this high of a price is just another level of separation between the rich and, you know, the people that live a middle class lifestyle.
Yeah.
Because that's
Do you
all it
find
is.
it funny?
Yeah,
So I was going to say, do you find it funny that a lot of these luxury brands use funny wording in their marketing? Like they say things like accessible luxury. And it's funny because, kind of as you pointed out, historically and even now, it's still about separating themselves and being a level of luxury that isn't attainable. Because if it's too attainable, then people lose interest. There's no aspiration. And Bernard Arnault has said this, like there always needs to be aspiration. Otherwise, you lose the brand completely. And if you think of some of these designers, even designers that I love from like what they've done in fashion history, like if we're talking about, let's say designers like Givenchy, people on Patreon will know this, where I talked about how Givenchy was one of the first people to actually recognize Hollywood and start dressing people like Audrey Hepburn and stuff. But before then, even Givenchy was like snobbish, and all the other designers didn't want to dress Hollywood actresses because they were like, we'd rather dress the real aristocrats rather than dress their imitations. That's kind of how they used to talk about it. And even when they finally managed to convince, you know, Givenchy, okay, this is a good idea, you can get famous from dressing these people, they're really big in America. He initially thought that he was dressing Katharine Hepburn, who was like a massive American actress at the time. Audrey was still at the start of her career. So when he found out it was Audrey, he's like, who's this rando that they're telling me to dress? Who is this rando? This person's not important enough for my brand. Until he found out who like Audrey was, and Audrey was from a good family. Then he was like, okay, maybe. That is how snobbish some of these designers are. And sometimes we forget that this huge level of snobbery is kind of like the basis of what makes these brands desirable. If that makes sense.
Exactly. And as we transitioned from that kind of like logo-centric maximalist period we had in 2018, 2019, 2017 with like Alessandro Michele, Supreme, the real boom of Louis Vuitton, Virgil. I think that's how we've ended up in this situation where now, and as fashion in general has become like more mainstream in the sense of social media, I think that's how we've ended up in this scenario where now, because everybody is consuming these luxury brands and it's completely diluted that sense of like who's rich, who's not rich, blah, blah, blah. Some of these brands are already saying, okay, well, let's just introduce another level. And this level we introduce is for those people who are actually rich, blah, 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 blah. Because when you start making, when your default for a bag is, you know, 10K, 15K, 20K, at that point, on paper anyway, everyone buying it should only be rich people, as opposed to, it wasn't that long ago where, you know, you could grab a luxury bag for like a K, if not less. It really wasn't that long ago. It's interesting how quickly and exponentially things are just like shooting towards the stars in regards to pricing and like exclusivity.
And I think it's a luxury goods thing across the board. Even if we go outside of fashion, if you think of like cars, the price of cars has skyrocketed. There's obviously issues with like microchips and stuff, but that does not justify the way prices have like shot up completely. And it's kind of similar across the luxury board. Even this is a conversation that people have with like Rolex and the prices of Rolex going up, Rolex watches. So it's just a very interesting thing that everyone is thinking that their luxury items are too attainable, and it's like messing up the aspiration of these brands. So to keep the same aspiration, they just need to raise the prices.
So there is so what I was talking about earlier was the middle class of luxury, right? Which is the people who will pick a segment of their lifestyle to be luxurious, where be it, you know, the amount of times a year they fly out, the amount of luxury bags that they have, or the amount of perfumes that they have, so on and so forth, or even like luxury watches. That's like what I would dub the middle class of luxury. There is then obviously the upper class, but then there is the uber wealthy and the uber rich. Now, in terms of supply chain, based on the way that products are manufactured, there was a reason for people had to have prices inflated. However, because that has gone down, but then there was still a rise in the amount of people that were buying luxury goods, the prices have just stabilized at that level. And we're not going to see the prices go down because luxury doesn't necessarily move that way, right? And this has happened across industry. So like, let's say, you know, in farming, it's happened in all of these areas where it's like inflation has gone up like, it's about 35% increase in the like lifestyle or the individual things that you'll buy. So even Vaseline or things of that nature has gone up by like, you know, 35p or even like 80p or whatever it is, right? I saw Vaseline for £3.50 the other day, and it used to be £1. But point being is that there was a supply chain issue, but now that that issue is kind of resolved, I was reading the article today, and because people are still buying their goods, people like the companies don't care. Even though they should put them down, they're not going to put them down.
Right, because the issues that did exist aren't there anymore. So, but they've just kept the prices high anyway.
Wage has to go up, which is what we should be fighting for. I do believe I shared it on I don't know whether I shared it on Twitter or not, but that was quite an important article, and I can't believe it just came up in this conversation today. But yeah, like that's real.
Yeah, but that's why everyone's striking. Like in the UK, all the train workers are always striking. TFL, they're always striking. I went to Florence recently for Pity and I had to change my flight because the day I was supposed to go, I just got this notification that, oh, there's going to be like strike action and no one's going to be at the airport. So then I had to make my flight the day earlier. And fair enough, they should be, fighting for these things because these companies have raised these prices. The issues are gone. The price is still high. So where are these profits going? They're not going to the employees in any sort of way. So they should rightfully fight for that.
Yeah, like, and this is the reality of it, right? So where in being middle class, you think about how can I make this money back? The money that I'm spending, how is it going to come back to me? There is a class of people that don't worry about money coming back to them because it just exists with them. And that is that's the level of separation that they have. But how do they identify, how do they show that level of separation to people? And that is really the point. Just to go back to the bags thing. So yeah. And that's who Bernard Arnault talks to, and it's working. Like, they don't care what price it is because they'll buy it anyways.
Oh, apparently, I don't know how true this is, but I'm fairly certain it's true. Apparently, they sold 50 of that millionaire bag.
No way.
Apparently, they sold 50.
No way. What?
Yeah.
No way. 50.
That low-key sounds about right.
Making 50 million on 50 bags is actually insane. Like,
I would actually put a cap on the amount of bags that they were allowed to make so that the allure can go up. And then the value of the bags that went out, like, it just skyrockets. Like, and then 5 years from now, you see at Christie's or Sotheby's selling for 10, 20 million. And then
probably
Pharrell's law goes through the roof, innit? Every piece on this collection or that collection goes up tenfold. Same thing with Virgil. Like, without a death needing to occur, right? So yeah, like, oh yeah, the Virgil, I swear the Louis Vuitton dunks, like, went for $1 million anyways. How much did they get sold for? Wait.
I'm not sure about that.
It was like it was a couple hundred pounds. It was something like that. Give me a sec. Wait.
Maybe the Air Force, maybe, but
yeah. Wait, give me a sec.
Caleb, did you have anything to add?
Oh yeah. So yeah, actually, the Air Forces, I think, did end up going, like, they auctioned off for hundreds of thousands of dollars, which is actually,
were they like Virgil's, like his personal ones, or like what?
I don't think they were his personal ones.
No, they were from the collect. Sorry, Caleb, you say.
No. Go ahead.
Were they samples or something?
No, they were part of the run that they made.
No way.
Yeah,
they were no. Okay, no. What it was where the runway had like 47 different Air Force.
Yeah.
I think 10 different ones actually got put into production and sold to the general public. Then there were like the rest, the other 30, that just didn't get made at all. So the only ones that existed were like samples. And then
so the samples,
was the one that had like the damier all over it. It came in like an LV orange trunk and Nike, blah, 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 blah. And I think that one auctioned off like tons of money. I don't know how much.
Yeah, so the one that had the special trunk that like actually came with the shoes, that one I think ended up going for the most money out of all of them.
Yeah, it sold for more than 100,000. The total raised 23 million or 25.3 million at Sotheby's. Wow. So yeah.
What do you guys think though? Just like where do you see like the longevity for Pharrell like at LVMH? Because when I think of LVMH, I just think of like a maison that just the sustainability part is kind of like hard to see because the shareholders and everybody like wants to see constant growth. And like how do you guys think Pharrell is gonna deliver that?
Well, at the moment, from what I can see, there is growth. So as far as they're concerned, he's doing his job. From what I know anyway, because that first debut collection, to my knowledge, has sold pretty well and to the markets that they thought it would sell to. a lot of this stuff was sold out before it even hit the stores. It was like made to order and things like that. Like
Yeah.
I said, I'm pretty sure they're just trying to target like the Chinese and Asian markets anyway, which is why they keep flying over there and doing. Even that recent Vogue interview that he did was in China at the Chinese. At one of
The pre-fall collection.
that's where the money is right now for them. So that's who they care about the most, and it seems to be working over there. So I think, as far as they're concerned, if he keeps doing that, they're happy.
Yeah.
I think this type of luxury world that we're in right now, to me, it doesn't make sense in the sense of like, I just don't, my head can't wrap around how prices can keep going up and up and up. Like, surely at some point it just physically has to stop. I don't really get it, but
Yeah.
you know, I'll find out in 10 years, I guess.
Yeah, I guess that's kind of like my question too, just like looking at like seeing if Pharrell can actually like sustain, you know, this type of
I don't think it's about Pharrell or not, though, funnily enough, because you could say that, you could argue the same thing about Virgil, no? That's like being like, oh, because Virgil, it's just lots of people preferred Virgil's designs, so they don't make those same comments. But like, I mean, LV were still raising the prices when Virgil was there. Not as much, but they were still raising the prices. I don't think the conversation is about, oh, is it Pharrell, is it not? It's just about, is what Pharrell's doing working for them? Oh, it is, okay, we'll keep him on.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm curious to see like how the Maison like will look in 3 to 4 years. Because like I'm also thinking about like Nicholas Geschker, who's been, I mean, he was at Balenciaga before, but like he's been at
Just
LV.
signed a 5-year contract.
Yeah, and he's been there for so long, and like just in like my opinion, just like when I'm like working or I'm in the store, like all of the women's stuff, like it sits like, and I just feel like
women's is a weird. Oh, okay. You still work there now? Is that what you're saying?
So I started there in 2021. Yeah, and it's been like what, like almost 3 years.
So surely you have good info on like how things are going in regard to
Sale.
I mean, are people interested in Pharrell stuff in Europe from what you've seen?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit different where I am because like I'm in San Diego, so like I feel like the market here and just like what like the merchandising team is like actually like sending us, it varies obviously versus like when you're somewhere like New York or like LA or Las Vegas where like you have like a more client centric like celebrity centric environment. Like I feel like those are the places that get like a lot more like show pieces. But I don't know. I feel like the market is just so different here. So it's kind of hard to like gauge what's gonna hit. Like for somebody like me, I feel like it'll hit, but then sometimes like for the average person buying it, it's a lot of like moms and like, you know, a lot of just, you know, miscellaneous, just regular people who don't like know anything about Virgil or Pharrell, or, you know, they just see it and they like it. So
I think for us as like more general high fashion consumers and like enthusiasts, I just think a lot of us underestimated the star power of Pharrell when we heard that he was appointed. So lots of us just thought about him as more of like any other celebrity, as opposed to what he actually represents to a lot of like Asian markets and hip hop markets and things like that. Like, and especially because Virgil, in terms of like public status and design, was so revered by the end of his tenure, we also forget that like at the end of the day, when he was appointed, outside of hip hop, lots of people didn't even know who he was.
yeah.
Whereas Pharrell, again, when he was appointed, he's a household name. At the end of the day, my mum knows who Pharrell is, and that's what I base when it's a household name is.
Wait,
I think also to the fact that he, I mean,
can I say something?
no, go ahead, brother. Go ahead.
So what you're saying, Michael, in like not so many words, is what I said was right a year ago.
What did you say a year ago? Remind me.
Oh, okay. No, like
he just wanted to suck himself off. It's cool.
What is it? What was our conversation?
I'm playing. But like I believe, like Michael, you said something that like really interested me, which was you don't see how the prices can just keep going up, and I think that's the point.
Mm.
As much as the rate of price hikes is going to slow down, the idea that these people have to care about the price is another thing entirely. It's like a philosophy they don't even live by. And obviously, like, you know, you hear terms like throw it in the bag, I don't look at the price tag. If I have to look at it, like all of these other things, but like there are people that literally swear by that, and not in hip hop songs and not in like any small sentiments. There are the sheikhs, the people that you know, work in China. There's, you know, the billionaires, like China, you know, the number of billionaires they have has dropped. However, that doesn't really matter, right? Because they're out of lockdown now. But in terms of where Pharrell reaches, these people, the people that live on this upper echelon, they don't care about the price because the price does not affect them whatsoever. And I'm not even just, and I said all of those other places, and I excluded America and England because, and Europe for the most part, because that isn't necessarily who he should be thinking about, like you were saying. So, um, but at the same time, the American market for Louis Vuitton is growing, which is like nuts because it's already huge anyways. Because I think they're their second biggest market. I'd have to look that up
Yeah,
again.
yeah.
But yo, that's crazy that the market is actually growing. But yeah, there's people that live on
Your
different
point is facts though, because like even historically, if you think of when brands started to scale, initially it was because of Japanese consumers. So when it was just okay, we're only going to cater to, you know, French aristocrats, these brands actually didn't make that much money.
Yeah.
Then they learned how to license out their stuff. Then they started making more money. Then they started selling to Japanese consumers and they started making more money. And it was like a slow thing. So it was actually when they started getting more and more involved in the American and Asian markets that they really saw some crazy growth. Before then, when it was just Europe, they weren't really making that much money. Like Europe is actually so tiny, like in the grand scheme of things, if we really think about it, these countries are tiny compared to the countries in Asia, compared to a country like the USA, which is huge. Like the
Here's the
USA
thing
is
though.
enormous.
Here's the thing. Like wealth was concentrated here in a time up until like the Great Depression, right? And even somewhere thereafter. So the idea that and obviously Europeans had this very racially like and religiously fueled sentiment that they're gonna buy from these particular people, and you know they bought in quotes locally but someone from their own country, and then when they wanted to be exotic they bought from another country, and then that scope just went out, and America wasn't even in the picture at these times, even though America had their millionaires, right? But America wasn't in the picture. And then you know, like you were saying, then China, not China, sorry, Japan gets introduced to the market, and then the market gets bigger, and then that merchandising comes in. But nothing was to nothing stopped Bernardo Arnault from figuring bigger than he was for, you know, introducing and opening so many stores in these places. And not just that, right? Because we talk about LVMH as fashion, but they're not just a fashion house, or should I say a fashion conglomerate. They do everything. They're
Cosmetics,
yeah,
liquor,
so
watches.
precisely. So it's one of these things
And
where
they
you're
basically
you're
Bernardo
working
Arnault,
for
like
yeah.
he damn near owns the like duty free market. Like he owns the biggest duty free companies too. And that was down to the start when he saw that okay, when people are traveling, if they can buy stuff tax free, they'll buy more of it. And he got
Yeah.
really involved in the few people that were involved in the tax free market and he bought all of them out. So he has his hands literally everywhere you turn when it comes to luxury fashion, like every single facet.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, I know there's people who will come into the store who will, like, they'll see something and they're like, you know what? I'm going to Europe or I'm going here in a few weeks, a month anyway. I'm just gonna wait till I get to Europe where, you know, you get your tax, what is it? Tax
Refund, yeah.
when you get back
Yeah,
to
tax
Europe.
free, like you get a refund from the
Yeah.
VAT or whatever, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that also like allows people to indulge a little bit more like overseas and Yeah.
This YouTube channel runs on your support. If you want to support the channel, you can subscribe to my Patreon. You'll gain access to exclusive content that includes everything from my Patreon podcast, where I give a behind the scenes insight into the fashion industry, as well as a fashion book club where I review my favorite fashion books. You can also check out my fashion ebook, which highlights the best fashion journalists to follow, definitions of common fashion terminology, and how to determine what a good source of fashion information is. The links to everything are in the description below.